that's what I beseech. Keep in my heart your remembrance, and in your deen allow me to advance. Help me in my quest, permit me to pass the ultimate test. Help me in my quest, permit me to pass the ultimate test.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ask Huda. I'm your host, Jamil Rashid, and I have with me today Sheikh Muhammad Salah. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you for being with us today on Ask Huda, Sheikh.
My pleasure.
Okay, Sheikh, let's start with a question here from Brother Riyaz. And before I go into his question, let me remind you that today's episode is only about your emails. We're not going to be able to take any of your calls today, so please don't call us today. And if you do have a question, like all the brothers and sisters have sent in, please send it to ask@huda, huda.tv. Brother Riyaz, Sheikh, has a question about a certain book he's read, The Potence of the Doomsday, the Day of Judgment.
No.
He says this book says in there that the religious knowledge, scholars and believers will become extinct at the end of time.
No.
He says that how is this so when more and more people nowadays are embracing Islam, increasing their knowledge, people are going to make Hajj and so forth. How is this so?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala nabiyyihi wa Mustafa. Praise be to Allah, we praise Him and we seek His help. Whomsoever Allah guides is the truly guided one, and whomsoever Allah leaves astray, no one can show him guidance. I send the best peace and salutation upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. An-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam informed us about a fact, which is the Day of Judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And when Jibreel alayhi salam came to him in the lengthy hadith and asked him about when will it occur, he said, مَا الْمَسْئُولُ عَنْهَا بِأَعْلَمَ مِنَ السَّائِلِ. The one who's being asked about it knows no better than the questioner. So Jibreel alayhi salam said to him, فَأَخْبِرْنِي بِأَمَارَاتِهَا. Give me some of its signs and indication that precedes its occurrence. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam listed some. And in various other hadith, the scholars collected from all of that signs, which are known as minor signs and major signs. The major signs, whenever any of them will occur, that means it's like a necklace. Once it is undid, all the signs will follow one another, such as the rising of the sun from the west, the appearance of the false messiah, the beast, the smoke, all of that. But the sign which you indicated of Raf'ul ilmi, where knowledge and the Quran will be withdrawn. It was narrated in a hadith by Abdullah, the son of Amr ibn al-As, may Allah be pleased with him and his father. He narrated that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَقْبِضُ الْعِلْمَ انْتِزَاعًا مِنَ الصُّدُورِ وَلَكِنْ يَقْبِضُهُ بِقَبْضِ الْعُلَمَاءِ. Which means that Allah does not withdraw knowledge and the Quran simply by that one day the scholars will wake up and will find themselves ignorant.
Mm-hmm.
You ask them and say, I don't know. The Quran, they forgot it. The Sunnah, they do not remember anything of it. No, that will not happen. But it will take place by taking the souls of the scholars, leaving behind only ignorant people who will not hesitate to give fatwa whenever they're being asked. So they will make the lawful unlawful and the unlawful lawful and so forth. يفتون بغير علم. So they lead people astray and they themselves go astray. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam warned us against them. Is this happening now? We see every day one or two scholars are dying. But alhamdulillah wa shukrillah, Allah is giving us great scholars who are living amongst us right now. But this is not the sign which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam meant. I mean, this is not the time where this sign will take place. Because when it will happen, it will leave behind no scholars whatsoever. So whenever there are signs preparing, of course, we're approaching the Day of Judgment. Every single day, every single moment that passes by, we're getting closer to the Day of Judgment. As a matter of fact, the Ba'athah, the prophethood of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam itself was a sign of the approach of the Day of Judgment. But it doesn't mean it will take place tomorrow. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam in one hadith said, بُعِثْتُ أَنَا وَالسَّاعَةِ كَهَاتَيْنِ. My prophethood his ba'athah sallallahu alayhi wasallam and the occurrence of the Day of Judgment are that close. But how close? It could be hundreds or thousands of years. And is that close? Yes, because comparing this to the lifespan of the entire life and universe, this is nothing. But we're definitely approaching the Day of Judgment. And it doesn't mean when this happens, or whenever a scholar will happen, that tomorrow we will witness the occurrence of the Day of Judgment, because there are other major signs which will definitely indicate and confirm the approach of the Day of Judgment.
Jazakallah khair. Brother Riyaz has a second question, Sheikh. He says, can my wife give zakah to her mother who has borrowed some amount and could not repay it? She's borrowed some money, so his wife's given some zakah to her so she can pay back this money. She has borrowed this money without her husband's knowledge too, who is a well-off person, but she didn't want him to know that she is needing of this money, so she's taken this money off her daughter. Does her mother come within the groups that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about, which are eligible for zakah, Shaykh?
Of course, in verse number 60 of Surah At-Tawbah, chapter Repentance, Allah the Almighty informed us about 8 categories who are eligible for the zakah fund. Amongst the 8 categories, one subject which is known as Al-Gharimin. Al-Gharimin does not mean those who are in debt, because I'm in debt, you are in debt somehow to somebody else. It doesn't mean that simply because you are in debt that means you can take the zakah. But you are drowned and overwhelmed with a debt that there is no way that you can settle it. You were struck with a calamity, you had to borrow a great sum of money which is beyond your capacity to pay off or to settle. Such people who are very poor and they owe a lot of money are known as Al-Gharimin. So it's permissible to give them from the zakah, even if their debt is so huge, even if it is 100,000 or even more. Because that's why they are drowned in debt, and we want to settle their debt with the lenders. But in this particular case, we heard from you that you're saying that her mother, her husband is well off. That means he's rich. And she borrowed this money for some reason that she did not want to inform her husband. So there is something that's not understood in this story. We cannot simply say, yeah, go ahead and pay the zakah to her so that she can settle, because she's beneficiary from you, in addition to her husband is well off. So that is a personal case, has to be dealt with very sensitively, and we have to figure out what is the condition which let a wife borrow a great amount of money while her husband is already rich. So we cannot give you an answer to say, yeah, you can give her the money, because until this moment, she is not eligible for your zakah.
Jazakallah khair. Sister Sadia Khan from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia had several questions. And the first one, is it permissible to carry a Quran with her, she's saying, in her purse all the time? Because she's read that it's very good to have the Quran with you wherever you go.
I would like to answer this question with another question, which is why? Why do you carry the Quran? I asked this question because by the end of statement she said she heard that it is good to carry the Quran with you.
Her all the time.
Why? Is it some sort of an amulet or ta'weez, a talisman? If this is the case, then there's a problem there. The Quran is not revealed to be used as an amulet. But it is excellent to carry the Quran throughout the time, so that whenever you have any leisure time or spare time or have a break, or you're riding in the bus, you're going from a place to another, you open the Quran and you review whatever you memorized. Or you have a daily sabaq or a daily homework to do by reading one para, one juz, 2 or 3, or even one page. I mean, you have a daily routine to finish in reading the Quran. But if it is simply you're carrying the Quran, similar to those who make certain that they keep a copy of the Quran in their glove compartment and under their pillows and on top of the curtain, simply as a mean of protection, some people even bury the Quran before building a new house beneath every foundation or pole. This is haram, of course. This is another form of talisman. But we definitely recommend for everyone to carry a copy of the Quran in order to read it, in order to be reminded with the recitation of the Quran and revise it whenever you have a chance. Would like to remind you also that you should remember while you're entering al-khala, which is the bathrooms or the restrooms where you answer the call of nature. It's not allowed to take the Quran with you. You should avoid taking the Quran to these places, unless if it happens that you are in a public place, airport, a restaurant, where you're afraid that if you leave your purse outside or the Quran somewhere will be taken, will be wasted, then you must make sure it is sealed. I mean, it is concealed in your purse, it is not open.
Jazakallah khair. The next question, Sheikh, she's asking about the name Afrah. That's A-F-R-A-A-H, that's how she spelt it. Does this name have a meaning? Is it permissible to keep a name like this, Sheikh?
I think I'm fully aware with the Afrah because it brings to our hearts some delight. Afrah is an Arabic word which is in its plural form. Its singular is farah. And farah is also common in the Indo-Pak background, which means delight, surur, happiness and pleasure. In the Egyptian slang, farah right away indicates to the party of the wedding. So it's okay if you name your child with the name Farah or Afrah. There is no problem with that. May Allah bring delight and surur and happiness to your life.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Okay, the next question from the sister. She said, the Prophet ﷺ has said that the white color clothes are preferable for men and colored clothes are preferable for women. This is the statement from the sister. So she says next, so if I would like to wear an off-white color dress, will it be committing a sin if I do so, Sheikh?
As a matter of fact, it is true that there is a hadith narrated by Abdullah ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with him and his father, narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Bisu min thiyabikum al-bayad," which is a recommendation, mere recommendation. This is not a command. That the Prophet ﷺ used to like the white color, but he did as well wear the black and the green and sometimes the red which has other stripes. The only prohibition is concerning the plain red. The plain red is prohibited, and the scholars differ whether it is haram, totally prohibited, or mere disliked, makruh. So men should avoid the red color, while it's permissible for women to wear any color they want. Only the red, which is a plain red, is prohibited for men. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to prefer the white color, especially on Friday and the Eids. He used to have an outfit he would preserve for these occasions and keep them on, and it was white. But other than that, it is permissible to wear any other color. So if you change your mind and you wear gray, blue, and red, which have other colors, stripes or whatever for men, it is permissible as well.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, we had a question here from Sister Zahra from Qatar. She wants to know her situation. She said, my brother was married for 3 years, but his wife didn't get pregnant. They didn't have children, so they went to Umrah and to pray to Allah, asking Him to give them a baby. This is the sister, she went to Umrah. She said, 1 month after I came back, her sister-in-law became pregnant and she was very happy for this. So now she's asking, regarding this, is it all right for me to fast a day to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this reward?
This is more of sharing an experience with us which would benefit me, you and all the viewers. That if you are really in need, even with a problem such as not being able to conceive, missing having a child, then you should turn to Allah the Almighty. Some people tried drinking from Zamzam water and wishing before that and invoking Allah the Almighty to give them a good offspring, and Allah responded. Or on the day of Arafah, asked Allah the Almighty while they are performing Hajj or while performing Tawaf, and it did work with the many people who have waited for years, sometimes a whole decade, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered. So we would like to share this with all the viewers. إِذَا سَأَلْتَ فَاسْأَلِ اللَّهِ. And it doesn't mean you neglect the other means of seeking remedy or medication. But besides that, you should invoke Allah the Almighty. So my congratulations for your brother, and thank you so much for your keenness to pray for him. May Allah accept from you and answer all our good supplications. Ameen. As far as showing gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for answering one's dua, you could do that by any mean, giving sadaqah, fasting, or praying, or feeding the poor. All of that is permissible, but do not forget the aqiqah is a confirmed sunnah upon delivering the baby. 7 days later, 21 days, or whenever you have a chance, if it is not possible on the first week or the second week. This is the aqiqah, which is a confirmed sunnah as a mean of giving also gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for having this child, and as a mean of protection for the child, him or herself.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, Sister Hamila from Nigeria sent a couple of questions in. The first one, she says, my first question is, how do I go about making my husband understand that not all acts of ibadah or worship are allowed in Islam? And she gives an example like people holding certain celebrations on the Prophet's birthday that they say, 40 days, for example, 1 year later on certain people's death, they have another celebration. All of these so-called worships, I'm trying to explain to my husband, she says that they are wrong, but he's saying, look, they're all worship, I'm worshipping Allah. How does she go about explaining, Sheikh?
Number one, there is no ibadah but what Allah has ordained, prescribed, or allowed, or His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if we have somebody who's doing whatever, and he called it ibadah, then we open the book, we search in the entire sunnah, and there is no such reference, then this is not ibadah. This is rejected. We stated before in the sound hadith that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whosoever innovates in this matter of ours, in this religion, anything which is not from it, it will be rejected. There is no word for it whatsoever. As a matter of fact, the person will be committing a sin. And it is worth mentioning here that the Prophet ﷺ in the sound hadith, which is narrated by Al-Irbad ibn Sariyah, may Allah be pleased with him, and I believe it's collected by Tirmidhi, may Allah have mercy on him, that the Prophet ﷺ once gave them a very eloquent speech that they were frightened, and some of them cried upon hearing this maw'idah, a reminder. So they said, Ya Rasulullah, it seems like it's a farewell speech, so won't you give us an advice, an extra advice? The Prophet ﷺ said, I advise you to fear Allah and to be good, obedient servants to Allah and to your rulers, and commit yourself to sticking to sunnati وَسُنَّةِ الْخُلَفَاءِ الرَّاشِدِينَ الْمَهْدِيِّينَ. The Prophet ﷺ predicted a lot of controversy after his death. فَإِنَّهُ مَنْ يَعِشْ مِنْكُمْ بَعْدِي فَسَيَرَى اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. You guys are going to see a lot of controversy after my death. So what do? Adhere, stick, commit yourself to abide by sunnati وَسُنَّةُ الْخُلَفَاءِ الرَّاشِدِينَ, and in one narration, al-Mahdiyin. My tradition and the traditions of the rightly guided Khulafa, who are exactly the first four, Abu Bakr, wa Umar, wa Uthman, and Ali, in the first 30 years. He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, bite on it by your molars.
Hang on to it.
Hang on it. Bite on it. This is a metaphor. You're not going to bite on the book, but it indicates that's like, you're hanging in one rope. If you leave it, you're going to drop dead. This is exactly the sunnah. If you skip the sunnah, if you turn to making bid'ah, you're dead. You change the deen. عَضُّ عَلَيْهَا بِالنَّوَاجِذ. Then the Prophet ﷺ furthermore warned us against the innovation by saying that فَإِنَّ كُلَّ مُحْدَثَةٍ بِدْعَةٍ. Anything that is new, and some people would refer to it as a ibadah or an act of worship, and Nabi ﷺ called it bid'ah, not an ibadah. Then he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وَكُلَّ ضَلَالَةٍ فِي النَّارِ. Since the innovation will take somebody who adopts will take it off the track, astray, then that would definitely lead to the fire of hell. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. May Allah protect all of us. So for any wise person, there is a prescribed ibadah. And this prescribed worship is divided into two main categories. One which is ordained. If you do it, you're saved. And the one which is voluntary, supererogatory, that you would like to do as much as you can of it, you draw nearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He said, and my servant will continue to draw near to me through fulfilling an nawafil, until I love him. Doing anything extra out of the boundaries or the circle of what's mandatory and what's voluntary is totally rejected. Is a waste of time, is a waste of effort, maybe is a waste of money, and there is no reward in it whatsoever.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, the sister's got a second question. It's about being a second wife. So my husband is going to take another wife, but it's not due to his need, rather pressure due to family, because we haven't had children for over 10 years. We are seeking medical help for this, but because of family pressure and having kids and not being able to, they've been pushed into this situation, she says. She says, my fear is not polygamy, but rather the reason behind this pressure from the family. He's not doing this because of his own need, but rather to suffice the calls of his family. How about going advice? What advice can we give to her about this, Sheikh?
I need to share with you a fact that whenever the husband or your husband is willing to take another wife, trust me, it is not simply because his family are pressurizing him. You mention a condition. Let's face it. You're saying that it's been a while and you cannot have children. The first rule that we need to deal with, is it permissible for him to marry or to remarry? Yes, it is permissible. This is the second time. Okay. Now, whether he wants to marry because he wants to have a child, or he agrees to an advice of a family member or anybody else to have a child, that is totally permissible. So we should not have a problem with that, and you should accept Allah's decree with pleasure, and you should be patient. And if your husband doesn't want to hurt your feeling and he tells you that I don't want to, but I want to please my family, it's possible that he's trying to find a smart excuse. So you should really accept this excuse. I'm not saying to him you should go and get married, but now I'm facing him and I say, you should not marry simply because somebody is hammering you or forcing you. Or, there is no compulsion in marriage. This is marriage. You don't want to harass, you don't want to treat somebody unjustly, which will be your next wife, simply because you did not marry her willingly. You happen to marry her because somebody forced you to marry her. Marriage is based on a free will choice. So when he sees somebody, or they introduce somebody to him and he likes her and she likes him, and they want to get married within the boundaries of the number that Allah stated, it is permissible, and you should not stop in the face of that.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Okay, the last question from the sister is regarding a child born out of wedlock. She says, is this child entitled to any inheritance from the father?
You mean out of marriage? Due to adultery? So she's asking, or he's asking, that this child, would he inherit from the biological father, even though this birth was due to an illicit relationship? No. There is no inheritance between them whatsoever. Not only that, this child will not even bear the surname of his father. You see how bad is this crime, adultery and fornication? It does not legalize any result of this relationship. Even if this person, the biological father, married this woman after conception and before birth, once this pregnancy took place out of wedlock, out of marriage, out of legal, legitimate relationship, this child will be deprived from all, not the child, the father as well. Because if the child happened to be very rich, then he or she dies. The father has no right whatsoever in his wealth, because he would not be treated as his legitimate son. This is an indication that this crime is such an awful crime. You will live your entire life not being able to call your son after your name, because you have him due to an illegitimate relationship. So now you can't inherit this person, nor can he inherit you.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Okay, the brother is asking a question about Nigeria. It's regarding the scholars. He's asking about the praising of the scholars. Some scholars praise their teachers and on TV and so forth, ask them Allah to grant them so much good deeds. He's asking of granting of good deeds for anybody and praising somebody in the open so much. Is it allowed in Islam? Are we allowed to do this kind of praising?
We spoke before about the Prophet ﷺ forbade us from praising somebody in his face. But acknowledging the fact that you were taught by this person, especially if he died, or if he's old and if he's not interested in any world again anymore, it is recommended. Why? Fact number one, مَنْ لَا يَشْكُرِ النَّاسِ لَا يَشْكُرِ اللَّهِ. One who's not being grateful to people who have done him a favor or taught him, he's not going to be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second fact, this is a way of teaching the newer generations. How should you treat your teachers? How should you treat your elders? So acknowledging the right upon us is recommended. So it is permissible if this is the reason. But of course, on the other hand, there are people who would do that before the cameras or in public for another reason in their hearts. If the intention is not sincere, that's between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As long as you're not praising the person in his face, and as long as you're not afraid that might change his spirituality, then it is permissible.
Okay, I got the question here from Brother Faisal from Yemen. He says, I'm coming from Aden to London. Okay, I plan to stay here for at least a month. During that time, I will be going to Sana as well, so I'll be traveling in and out. And he says, I wanted to know whether I should pray the normal full prayers, knowing that I'm going to be there for a month or so, or pray for travel. So basically shortening his prayers.
It is permissible for a traveler to shorten the 4 rak'ahs prayer into 2, and also combine 2 prayers at the time of either one of them. Dhuhr and Asr together at the time of either one of them, Maghrib and Isha together at the time of either one of them. And the scholars have different opinions with regards to the time span. How many days if you're staying in this place which you're traveling to? There are different opinions. We said before the opinion of Al-Jumhur, the vast majority of the scholars, if somebody is planning to stay more than 4 days in one place without moving back and forth, then he should pray on full. Will be treated as a resident. But if he is not staying, he's always on the move. Stayed, I don't know if I'm leaving tomorrow or not. I'm waiting on a phone call from my boss or my employer to tell me, come on over, or you go from here to there. As long as you did not specify a date and you don't have a clear idea how long you're staying, you're still considered as a traveler, and you may shorten and combine the prayer as much as you wish.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, I got a question from Brother Ali Muhammad from Qatar. He's asking quite a difficult question. We've had it all the time, but he's asking it with a twist, if I could use that word. He's saying, is it wajib for a husband to let his first wife know in regards to marrying a second wife? And the answer, he's saying, is if it's not, you don't have to inform your wife. Isn't this a form of deception, he's saying?
Number one, it is not wajib. And why isn't it wajib? Because if it was wajib, that means the validity of any other marriage will be conditioned or contingent on her approval. But since you may marry without her approval, it's not a condition, that means it's not necessary to inform her. But is it okay not to inform her? Obviously not. Because you will end up lying so long as you are having a second marriage. Where were you last night? I was working. I was busy because I was staying up late. I'm taking a night shift. Your entire life will be all about lies and deception. And that's why if any person decided to take a second wife or a third wife, or what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made allowed, a permissible, should not really do that unless he informs his wife. Is it mandatory? No. Is this marriage contingent on her approval? Absolutely not. So why should I? For the sake of having a peaceful marriage life with both wives.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Okay, we're going to take a short break now, and inshallah return in a couple of minutes. Stay with us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
اللهم إني أسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى اللهم إني أسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Ask Huda. Just to remind you, this program is a special program where we're going through your emails. So please don't call us today. We won't be able to entertain any of your calls. If you do want to send us an email, please do at ask@huda.tv. Sheikh, Sister Sadia sent a question regarding names. Now, we did just speak about names, but slightly different. She says, Alhamdulillah, I'm a revert, and my name has my husband's name included in it, and that's in the passports and all documentation. She says, now, I've now learnt that it's not right to take my husband's name. What do I do in terms of changing the name back? Do I have to?
Well, it's time to free women and give them rights, free them from the Western traditions which confiscated their rights. Your father is your father, and your surname should be your father's name, not your husband's name. Is it optional? No, it is not. So you must keep your father's name, not your husband's name.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, the sister has a second question. It's the importance of aqiqah. She wants to know, what's the importance in Islam? How important is it that you do this ceremony after you have a child?
The aqiqah.
Yes.
The aqiqah, as we stated, I believe, just a little bit ago, it is something fine as long as the minimum requirement is fulfilled. And the timing was prescribed by the Prophet ﷺ is on the 7th day of the birth. Or sometimes the family is busy with the birth, with the baby, with the doctors and all of that, especially if it is the first experience. So they may postpone it, they may delay it. Also for those who are not financially capable, they may postpone it until they can afford it. This is not something to burden the family with. But we say the best is on the 7th, if not on the 14th, if not on the 21st. I mean, a week later, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, or otherwise, as long as you do it at any time, you just fulfilled what's confirmed from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Okay, I've got a question from the email. Sister Farah asked a question about Hinduism. Now, she's got some problems. She says, look, I agree that Hinduism is incorrect, because when they say you're born in a poor state or an uneducated state, you're a lower person in society. But she says, what about Islam? Some people are born rich, some people are born poor, some people don't have education. Where's the equality? She says, and she questions this, that isn't this discrimination by God Himself?
First of all, we have to ask Allah for forgiveness for saying so. Allah is our creator, is our provider. And amongst His beautiful names is Al-Adl, the most just. And justice comes from Him. He's the source of justice. He's the source of mercy. He created us so that some people will serve others. He created white and black. And He concluded all of that in a beautiful verse when He says, يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. O mankind, we created you from a single male and female. Then we made you into nations and tribes in order to get to know one another. Indeed, the most honorable one of you, the noblest one of you, is the one who is more righteous and pious. That is the only factor which determines the superiority and the nobility of any individual, not the complexion of their skin. Bilal ibn Rabah was a black Abyssinian slave. One day, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Oh Bilal, what do you do that is so good that I could hear your footsteps in paradise?" Imagine this black slave one day climbing the Kaaba. And that's why some of the Meccan chiefs, while they were sitting, said to another, "I'm glad that my father died before watching this moment, before witnessing this incident." What incident? This black slave is climbing the Kaaba and calling adhan. It's such an honor not to be given but to achieve. But Al-Quran came and Islam came and Prophet Muhammad ﷺ came to establish equality and equity. Equality and equity, which is based on your right as a human. Okay, now we are asking about how come there are some people who are poor and some people are rich. Well, I remember when somebody said, "I wish I was a multi-millionaire like so-and-so." He was a millionaire. They said, "But he has a cancer." He said, "I don't mind. I wish I was a millionaire right now even if I have a cancer." pay close attention to this. He was working very hard. He was determined to be rich and particularly a millionaire. The day he accomplished his goal and finally he became a millionaire, it is the same day when he was diagnosed that he has a malignant tumor. Are you happy with that? I wish I was not. I wish that somebody would take this tumor from me and take all my money back. When you examine everybody, you will find that the rich is not happy somehow because he has some of his own problems. And the poor have his own problems. Imagine many rich people envy the poor ones. Why? They say, oh my God, these guys don't have any problem. Once they rest their head on the pillow, they fall asleep. I wish I was poor. No one is happy. But this is the trait of the disbeliever. إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ خُلِقَ هَلُوعًا إِذَا مَسَّهُ الشَّرُّ جَزُوعًا وَإِذَا مَسَّهُ الْخَيْرُ مَنُوعًا. Man is created very impatient, generally. Whenever some bad touches him, he complains and he does not show patience and he talks ridiculously. And whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests him with something that is good, health, wealth, wife, children, he's manu'a. He restrains this good from reaching others. That's mine. إِنَّمَا أُوتِيتُهُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ عِنْدِ. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exempted from this evil trait the good doers, the believers. إِلَّا الْمُصَلِّينَ. He began by saying, they pray. Then he can continue, of course, in Surah Al-Ma'arij, the traits of those who are exempted from this evil quality. You have to be pleased with what Allah has decided and decreed for you. For several reasons. Number one, because Allah is Al-Hakeem Al-Khabir. He's all-wise, He's well-acquainted. He knows that this is good for you. Because maybe if you're rich, you will never be happy in your life. Maybe if you're rich, you'll be drinking or in drugs. Maybe if you're rich, so He chose for you what's best for you, what suits you most. He's Al-Hakeem, Al-Alim, Al-Khabir, well-acquainted, all-knowing, all-wise. This is the fact number one which will make you happy with whatever Allah decrees for you and decides for you. The second fact is, وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. This life is short, brief, and it is all about the illusion, the delight which is very temporary. Abdullah ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, narrated that the Prophet ﷺ grabbed hold of his shoulder and said, O Abdullah, the son of Umar al-Khattab, he said, كُن فِي الدُّنْيَا كَأَنَّكَ غَرِيب أَوْ عَابِرُ سَبِيلٍ. Live in this life as you are a wayfarer. You're just passing by. Do not plan to stay there for long. Keep in mind that you are waiting for your call. Let's go? Let's go. So Abdullah ibn Umar later on used to say, إِذَا أَمْسَيْتَ فَلَا تَنْتَظِرِ الصَّبَاحِ وَإِذَا أَصْبَحْتَ فَلَا تَنْتَظِرِ الْمَسَاءِ. The son of Umar al-Khattab learned the lesson. So he used to say to others that in the morning, never wait for the evening, because you never know if you're going to reach there or not. And if it is the evening, do not expect to live till the morning. وَخُذْ مِنْ صِحَّتِكَ لِسَقَمِكَ أو لمرضك وَخُذْ مِنْ حَيَاتِكَ لِمَوْتِكَ. What does it mean? Take from your health to the time when you will get sick. I mean, seize this opportunity. This life is a course that Allah sent you in it to be tested. If anyone understands this concept, he will never ask this question. He will never question Allah, why did you make me poor? Why did you make me sick? A couple of days ago I was told that a friend of mine, his wife passed away. His wife suffered like I have never seen anybody else suffering. From day one, since they got married and she got pregnant and gave birth, she was diagnosed with a bunch of diseases, renal failure, liver cirrhosis, cancer, etc. She lived years in misery. If anybody would see her condition and his condition, would feel pity for them and will have mercy on them. All his resources were directed towards her treatment. Does it mean that Allah was not fair to her? No. This woman, for her patience, would occupy a very great and prestigious position in paradise. And that's why, if you are a true believer, in this condition, you will remember what the Prophet ﷺ said. He said, "Hatta shawkah," even the pricking of a thorn, penetrating your skin, يشاكها إلا كتب له بها أجرا. So whenever you have some flu, you will not complain. You say, this is good for me. Whenever you have a collision, whenever you have an accident, whenever anything happens, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. So live this life as a traveler, as a wayfarer, and be pleased with whatever Allah the Almighty decreed for you. What about those guys who keep objecting? I would like to ask you one single question. Just see if you have an answer for it. If you object from now until you die, will that change the fact of what Allah has ordained for you? Preordained for you? No. If Allah decided for you to live and die as poor, even if you complain to everyone, that would not change your status. Because you're short and you want it to be tall, that will not change your status. The best, ذاق طعم الإيمان من رضي بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم نبيا. There is a taste for Iman. You will find it, and there is a flavor for it. You will experience it when you are being pleased with whatever Allah the Almighty decides and decrees for you.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Brother Aftab Alam asked a question, Sheikh, rather advice, if there's any kind of particular sadaqah for somebody who is ill, and you just spoke about illness and being patient and so forth, is any sadaqah that can be given at this particular time,
Whenever we
Sheikh?
say sadaqah, in this particular case, it goes to the voluntary charity. It's voluntary. Do as much as you can. Even if it is a fraction of $1 or a euro or a dirham or a dinar, as much as you can afford. The more generous you are, the more you expect reward and hasten the recovery of your beloved one. Because there are indications that a sadaqah protects from the harms, a sadaqah cures, it is a mean of curing the illness of the ill ones.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Okay, got a question here from a sister. She says, can a Muslim woman perm her hair to make it softer? For I see this act as changing the nature of the hair itself that Allah has given you.
You said burn?
No, this is perming the hair.
Perming.
Putting some chemicals to change its consistency.
I thought a woman would burn her hair to make it softer.
Well, actually, it's type of burning anyway, because you're using very hard chemicals. And she says, especially in African women, because their hair is a different type, very coarse sometimes, and they want to make it very soft.
Look, see, the issue of softening or smoothing or the hair by any kind of treatment, as long as it is not harmful, is permissible. And this is not the type of changing the creation of Allah the Almighty. Softening the hair, smoothing the hair, using creams, using natural products, or using any mean that is not harmful is permissible.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, Sister Rubina from the United Kingdom asked a question. It's all on the same theme as today. Can you please explain, clarify why the Prophet ﷺ did not allow Ali radiallahu anhu to marry a second time? We're speaking about second marriage today.
No.
Was this because it would hurt Fatima?
You know, as you were asking the question, and you said a question from the United Kingdom, I was just daydreaming, and I hope and I pray, I ask Allah the Almighty one day we'll get a question from the United Muslim world. It is so sad that we see the non-Muslim world are making colonies, making unity here and there in their currency, in their trade, and removing the barriers from between the countries, while the Muslims are putting more and more barriers and dividing even the small states into a smaller divisions and governorates. May Allah the Almighty unite the entire Muslim world to be under one flag. Ameen. Back to the question, which is why the Prophet ﷺ did not allow Ali, may Allah be pleased with him, to marry while he was married to Fatima. I think the Prophet ﷺ answered this question when he said, no way that the head of the daughter of the Pharaoh of this ummah, because the woman that Ali wanted to marry at the time, she was the daughter of Abi Jahl. He said, no way that her head will be with the head of the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So that was the reason. In addition to, by the way, if it is common in a family, this is a prestigious family, or if it is conditioned from the beginning that you marry her, you don't marry anybody else in her life, and there is a mutual agreement to that, that should be respected as well. Or otherwise, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam himself was married to more than one at the same time, so it's permissible. But what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam meant, that his choice was not the right choice at that time.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Okay, we've got Brother Farhan's got a question from us, Sheikh. He's saying, I'm studying at the present moment animation. I'm a student of animation. He says, can you enlighten me about the ruling, the Islamic ruling on this, whether I'm allowed to make characters? It's animation, cartoon characters and so forth.
This is an issue which the scholars spoke about it in details. Some of them judge drawing such things, cartoons and whatever, similar to painting, which is prohibited. And others said it is permissible in conditions such as educational processes for the children and so on. And with the conditions that you do not draw anything which indicates to show the awrah, for instance, or be a part of a play that has anything of its contents is haram. A drama or a play of fiction, things like that. So they limited the permissibility to the need for educating the children for good reasons and so on. And of course we have the original case where making pictures in general is restricted, because the Prophet ﷺ has said that al-musawwirun, or those who imitate the creation of Allah the Almighty, will be ordered on the Day of Judgment to bring life into what they have drawn.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, the brother's got a second question. He says, I want to ask, if I just reached the time for Jama'ah, okay, and this is for Fajr and Asr, so these two particular Salah he's asking about, and I can't pray the Sunnah before them, can I pray the Sunnah after I pray the Fard?
The question is concerning making up, but in this case making up the Sunnah. Making up the Sunnah, if it is a Sunnah that has a specific reason, such as Kusuf, Salatul Kusuf al-Khusuf. Once the time is over, it is over. There is no makeup for it. But if it is a Sunnah, regular Sunnah before or after the prayers, if you missed it because the Iqamah has been called, or you were late, or you woke up late, you may make it up in times other than the disliked times. But if it is a Sunnah, Mu'akkada for instance, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam was witnessed by Salama praying after Salatul Asr. She said, Ya Rasulullah, didn't you prohibit us from praying after Asr and until sunset? He said, sure, I did. But these are 2 rak'ahs, the Sunnah of the Dhuhr, that I was busy, I did not get to pray them, so I'm making them up. So if it is a Sunnah that's prescribed by the Prophet ﷺ, it is not simply mere nafl or voluntary prayers, and you did not get to do it on time, it is permissible to make it up of time.
Jazakallah Sheikh for all your answers today. Well, we'll come to the end of this episode of Ask Huda. Again, if you do have questions, any detailed questions which are a bit lengthy, please do send them via our email. Send them to ask@huda.tv. Well, until next time, I leave you with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
If my love is attached to thee, then from sins I will be free. Each time my heart will beat, your name will resound with heat. Allah is my heart's speech, your mercy is what I beseech. Keep in my heart your remembrance, and in your deen allow me to advance. Help me in my quest, permit me to pass the ultimate test. Help me me to pass the ultimate test. Help me in my quest. Permit me to pass the ultimate